Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday night midweek Oasis service here at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. It's Wednesday, May 18th, and it's my divine pleasure to be your host tonight. My name is Paul, and I'm excited for our program tonight. So, hello, church family, as Richard Robinson would say to me in my ear tonight. Welcome, our church family, as we gather at our oasis. And why do we call it the oasis? Well, it's a place where we can be together as a community to be spiritually refreshed between Sundays. We present our Wednesday night services in what we call the OCSL version of satsang, where we invite a speaker in and they speak for about 20 minutes. Then we open it up for a discussion, which we know that this gathering will be informal, intimate, and rich with all of its moving parts and pieces. Everything is in divine and perfect order. Our annual theme this year is Wonder, Wonder Everywhere. And our monthly theme is Living Everyday Wonder, focusing on emotions for the month of May. So if you're joining us for the first time, we welcome you. We're glad you're here. You found our website. And if you're interested in what's going on at the center, please explore our events page. And if you'd like to receive an email every week of the Village News, it will tell you everything that's coming up in the week ahead. So it'll come conveniently to your email inbox, and that can be found on our homepage where you can enter your email address. That's located in the lower left-hand corner. And you'll start getting the Village News on Thursdays. So please, if you're interested, sign up for it. Please know that you'll be muted during our service tonight by our Zoom team in the background. That improves the quality of the transmission. Please stay tuned for special and important announcements. And within those announcements, we'll read the new Minister's Covenant together, a ritual that we practice on Sundays and also at the Wednesday night service. So I've broken the ice and moved quite along, and I'm sure she's pretty ready. We're going to check that in just a second. Our speaker tonight is the incredible Reverend Dr. Elouise Oliver. I think everybody on this call knows who she is. She doesn't like it when I talk so much about her, but she is an inspiration. She considers Oakland Center her home church, and she led the East Bay Church into its magnificence as their senior minister for many, many years. And she retired. Ha ha ha. I don't think there's any such thing as retired in Reverend E's vocabulary. But she said when she was a little bit more available, she's committed to coming every other month on the third Wednesday here at Oakland Center to be with us on our midweek Oasis service. So Reverend E, let's take a chance and see if everything is working from your end. Can you hear me? I can hear you with no feedback. Wonderful. Okay. How are you doing tonight, Reverend E?
I'm doing fine. That's always my answer, because whatever we say becomes our reality.
Ah, true.
So I had a rough day today, and it's kind of unusual for me, but I realized it took me all day long to figure out what was the matter with me. And then just before time for this class, I realized that I was dealing with fear. And I'm not usually a fearful person. But what I'm talking about is our emotion and how our feeling can get us completely off the track. For some reason, I had a sense of responsibility for young people who came up at East Bay Church. And recently, we've had 3 or 4 young men have been killed. And my whole body has just been cold today. And I was trying to figure out what is this feeling? And then I realized tonight it's fear. That so much so much of our teaching is about happiness. And seldom do we have to deal or do we deal with the real vicissitudes of life. We deal with death when somebody's old and pass away. And then we have this thing we call a funeral. And people get up and say all the good things about this person. And then they are laid to rest. And sometimes it's a lot of fun. I remember when my husband had his funeral at First Church. And my husband had gone overseas when he was young. And he came back home as crazy as a Betsy bug. And he had PTSD and split personality and all kinds of stuff. But eventually, and he told me, I hear you going to that church and y'all don't believe in heaven and hell. Well, guess what? All of you are going to hell in a handbasket. And so I was able to keep praying for him and keep treating for him. And I took him to Revelation. I persuaded him to go to Michael Becker's church to Revelation. And there he met Brother Ishmael. And it changed his whole life. Because basically he never trusted men. If there were men around, they were after his woman or after something. And then he came back and he took all the classes. And he was killed by a hit and run driver when he was in Pratt 2. And so today I was dealing with that kind of fear because we had a young man who was shot in the head last night. And he is in Highland. And his father used to be a security guard at the church. And it has just been one thing after the other because I want it to stop. And I don't want retaliation. Like, whoever did this, they have got to pay. And it keeps this circle of pain going on. So I have a little song I want to sing for you because I've been singing it for myself all day and I never have sang. But I want to sing it and I may be out of tune. It's kind of in the tune of the country and western. And it goes, life is easy when you're up on the mountain. You have peace of mind like you've never known. But things can change when you're down in the valley. But don't lose your faith, 'cause you're never alone. 'Cause the God on the mountain is still God in the valley. When things go wrong, God makes them right. And the God of the good times is still God in the bad times. The God of the day is still God in the night. You talk of faith when you're up on the mountain. The talk comes easy when life's at its best. Down in the valley of trial and temptation, that's where your faith will be put to the test. 'Cause the God on the mountain It's still God in the valley. When things go wrong, God makes them right. And the God of the good times is still God of the bad times. And the God of the day is still God in the night. Hmm. And so I have been getting news from the hospital about this young man. And he was shot in the head. And about 2 years ago, my grandson's girlfriend was shot in the face, point blank, in Berkeley. And so I don't know, there's all kinds of theories about, is this some kind of retaliation? What's going on? And so I'm glad that I had this opportunity to speak to you tonight, because I feel like in this conversation, I can realize that the God is in the valley is still God in the night. And I have to be the person in this family, and it's a large family. I got about 25 men in this family. And so I have a son that moved to Ghana when George Floyd was killed. He said, Mama, I'm out of here. And I want to take all my sons with me because he has 5 sons. And so there's an atmosphere of fear in our family about the voting rights in Alabama and the shooting in New York. And I've just been plastered all day with this kind of news. And so I give thanks for being able to be among friends, to be among people who understand, and among people whom I can just lay it all out. So this is what's going on with me tonight. I'm scared. I am scared. I'm scared for the men in my family. I don't want this thing to keep on keeping on. My oldest grandson was murdered out on 73rd in East Oakland. And then he had a son. And when that boy grew up, he was murdered in East Oakland. And so I've been dealing with this fearfulness in our family of somebody being killed. And so I know that there are practitioners on this call tonight. And I've been looking in the science of mind, and it talks about fear and how the thoughts of fear create heart trouble and all kinds of sickness when you live in fear. And so this is my prayer tonight, that somebody on this call can do a prayer with me for the Oliver family and the men in this family, and that New York is not an example of how the world feels. I just don't believe that. I prefer to believe that these are isolated incidents, and that, as Martin Luther King said, we shall overcome. We are overcoming. And I first realized that racism ended for me at First Church. This idea of black and white. And it started me on a journey. And that's how East Bay got started. Because I wanted a church in the valley. And Dr. Owen, or I forgot his name now, was a minister of the church. And when I found First Church, and I wanted to go back, Jack Addington spoke at a Unity Church, and he wrote the book Everything Begins in Mind. And then he spoke on the hill at First Church. And so I wanted to go up there, and I had never heard of Clairwood Drive. And so I didn't know how to get to where this man was speaking. And somebody told me if I called AC Transit, they would tell me how to get there, what bus to ride to get there. And so I called AC Transit, and they told me that it didn't go up there on Sunday. It only went during the week to take the domestic help. It went early in the morning, Monday through Friday, and it didn't go back until that evening. It went back up there about 5 o'clock to bring down the domestic help. And I became so angry because my father had 8 children and he worked day and night. And he would take me with him to clean people, people's homes when they were going to have a party. And I had to wash their china one glass at a time because if you put two of them in the dishpan together, they might touch each other and crack. So I was very upset about the domestic help. And when I did get a chance to get up there, I went to Dr. Earl Evans, who was the minister. And I said, it ain't fair that y'all got this philosophy up here on the hill when people in the valley need to know these truths. The domestic help needs to know it, just like everybody else. And I want to do something about that. And he said, well, I promised my wife that I was going to retire soon. And when I retire, I'm going to do what you asked. I'm going to start a church in the valley on a bus line so the domestic help can get there. And that's how East Bay Church got started. Because I asked for something on a bus line so the domestic help could get there. And so tonight, I still know that there's peace in the valley. That regardless of what's going on in New York, in the repeal of the Voting Rights Act, there's enough of us who stand for love to make a difference. There's enough of us who believe in the power of prayer. There is enough of us to stand for peace and for justice. And so I'm glad that I got in touch with the fact that I was scared. Because I'm not scared now. Because I know I'm among those people who know how to do spiritual mind treatments, who know that there's nothing to fear. Somebody said, but fear itself. Because the God on the mountain is still God in the valley. The God of the good times is the God of the bad. Oh, that there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And so I close this now, recognizing that there is nothing to fear. That I place my sons and my grandsons and my great grandsons on the altar of God. And I know that all is truly well. I know, like I know, that all things work together for good. And I give thanks, and I let go and I let God. And so it is. And so if anyone would like to pray or ask a question or make a comment, now is the time for that. Thank you very much. So
Thank you,
Paul,
Reverend. I'm right here with you, darling. I'm in a state of grace in alignment with your desire. Reverend Jerry, would you like to come on the line?
After I wipe my tears, Reverend. After I wipe my tears, thank you for your vulnerability and your openness and your beautiful sharing and your trust and your faith that just inspires me so much. I I know that we're always divinely guided, and that this probably wasn't the best night for you to come on and speak, and yet it turned out to be the right and perfect opportunity to release fear, to step into grace, as you so beautifully inspired us. And I'd like the name of the young man who was shot so that I can make sure to keep him in my prayers. Do you have a first name for him?
His name is Obiah. I don't know how to spell it. It's Obiah. And so he's in
Ryan.
Thailand, and his father's name is Takim. And I was told that Takim says he's gonna find out who shot his son, and they gonna have to pay. And this can just be one person shooting another. It can just go on. And I want some peace. I want this to be the end of this.
And my heart goes out to you for the tenderness that you share about your own sons and grandsons and grandchildren and people in your life who you really love. And you know that we as white folks can't understand the depth of that love that you hold for your beloveds under circumstances such as this. And so I just embrace you and your family and your children and your grandchildren with, and I'm sure there may be some great grandchildren out there too. Yes. So I just embrace them.
4 generations.
Wow. So I'm just will continue to hold the high watch for you and your family and trust that something is shifting in this world of ours to make it a better place for everyone, since we are one and we claim our oneness. And I just simply adore you and love you for your sharing this evening. And the fact that we're family and we can be here together and lean into one another.
Thank you.
Mm.
Lucian, I see you're present. Would you like to say something to your grandmother and for all of us to support you guys through this process?
Thank you, Grandmama, for always bringing the truth in difficult situations. And I also appreciate that you talked about it. I haven't really been speaking about it, so it's good to come to a place where we are supported spiritually and we can just talk about the things that are on our heart. So thank you for that.
Reverend E has asked for prayer tonight if you're joining us. And so we're going to make it a reverence service this evening. We have a practitioner that'd like to come forward and do a little bit of wisdom speaking for us. That would be great. Or if you have a question for Reverend E, you're welcome to raise your hand or use the symbol. We want to be as succinct as we can, but we got time tonight. But her immediate request is for prayer for her and her family with some recent events. So Constance, I see your hand raised. If
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
Yes. Before I put it, Reverend E, I just want to say that as a mother of a son, I know that the worst fear any mother can have is that their child dies before they do, and particularly dies in a violent way. So it really touched me what you're going through. That whether these were your children or whether they were just children that you know, it's the same. You know, it's heart out every time something like that happens. And yet at the same time, I just know, and I absolutely know that God is everywhere present, that God is the truth of light. God is the truth of peace. God is the truth of wholeness and divine right order, and that that all that exists all the time, everywhere, no matter what's going on. And and sometimes it's hard, even those of us who are steeped in this philosophy, to hold on to that in times of deep grief, of deep sorrow. And yet that sorrow is as much of God as the joy is. And that what I know is true is that God holds that sorrow with incredible love, with incredible tenderness. And that that the young men who have gone to the other side, all of the people in the last weekend who have been taken out by violence, that they are being cradled and held in the arms of God right here and right now. And I know that this is who and what my life is, and I know that it's a life of Reverend E, it's the life of her family. And so I just speak my word, and I just speak it knowing that that the grace of God is right where she is, that the peace of God is right where she is, and that peace is surrounds her and holds her as if she were the infant, and that peace is the loving mother holding her and all of her family close to its breast, holding it and nourishing her, holding and nourishing the family as they go through this time. And I also know that any fear that's there, that the fear is based on on things that have happened in form, and yet the fear is not of God. And so I just know that any fear that lingers is cast out. That it's cast out so that Reverend E and all of her family can stand in peace and can stand for justice and can stand for truth. And that I just know that all of us on this call do that as well, that we all stand for justice, we all stand for truth, that we speak up. We do what we have to do in whatever little ways to make sure that to know that this world is the world that we know exists, that this is a world that works for everyone. And I also speak a word for all of those people who are that have forgotten whose they are, who have been consumed by hate, who have been consumed by false beliefs, and are living in that reality. And I speak a word for them that those false beliefs can be can melt away just like an ice cube in the hot sun, and that they can stand there and recognize the truth of whose they are, that they can make amends for all that they've done. And so I'm just so very grateful for knowing this truth. I'm so grateful for knowing the truth of that one power, that one grace. And so I just release this word. I let it go. I let it go into the loving arms of that law. And so please join me in saying, and so it is.
And so it is. Reverend E, I'm going to have you unmute yourself on your side, if you can, or have Stacy do it.
Oh, I thank you for prayer. Obaye is on life support, and he has not transitioned. Um, he was, you know, the diagnosis was he might have some kind of brain damage, and so we're just praying for his healing. And his dad is there with him, but the last report I had, he still was alive. And so we know that tragedy brings triumph. And so I know that something wonderful and something good is coming out of this. I just know that. I know that I've spoken to another one of my grandchildren, and I said, you know, you have a ministry in you. You don't. There's no way a person can go through this kind of suffering without a purpose. And this is the beginning of your purpose. And so I'm thankful for tonight. I am so thankful. I came on feeling like, Lord, I don't have nothing to say tonight. And I thought, well, I'll just tell the truth about and just say I'm scared. That's all I can say because I've just been nutty as a fruitcake, as we say sometimes. And I couldn't really get to what was the matter. And all of a sudden, before this class tonight, I realized I'm scared. That's what's wrong with me. I'm scared. And so just being able to name it is how I released it. And I want to say that to anyone else. If whatever you're feeling, I believe that if you identify the feeling can be healed. And so I want to thank you for a platform where I could just, my grandmother say, just testify about the goodness of God. Thank you.
Joan, go ahead.
Hey, Revy.
Hey there.
I'm not a practitioner, and I'm feeling very clumsy and emotional right now, which is fine. I just want to say thank you for your song. That was so sweet and really kind of what my heart needed. And I'm sure all of us. And I woke up in the middle of the night freezing, just freezing for hours and hours. I couldn't get warm. And thank you now. I know why. Um, I'm sorry about your losses. I feel I've had, losses since high school, many, and I know they're, quote unquote, up in heaven, and they're fine, and they're loved, and we're with them. Um, and I want to say, this young man who's at Highland Hospital, he's in the best place possible. I
Yes.
was a nurse there for many years in ICU. And that team, that team is, more amazing than you guys are. And that's saying a lot. So if anybody can save anyone, I tell my friends and
Yes.
family, if I'm dying, take me there. From,
Yes.
the folks who clean up the place to the nurses who are the most awesome. Oh my God. The doctors who are like, kind of, but Highland, oh my gosh. So I'm so glad that he is there. Um, and as a really young female, I don't know if you might know of a minister, Larry Bowlings from Oakland. I hope so, because he is an amazing individual. Larry Bowlings from Oakland, from our
How do you
sister.
spell? How do
I
you?
believe Bollings. Awesome. So, oh my God, totally, amazingly life changes. I think you might know him because you're kind of in that category too. And yeah, so I haven't been in the lowest of valleys. I haven't been in the highest of mountains. I've been a kind of, a little high in the valley a little bit, but we're all just, gosh, we're all on the same plane with love and faith and knowingness and just, I love you. And my heart goes out to you, your family, and gosh, everybody, to all this stuff going on in the world right now, right? So that's all I got to say. Okay.
Thank you. So basic. Oh yes, yeah. Let's see what's the time. We're at 7:35. So Paul, we still have some time to share. I suppose I could share. I lost an uncle back in late 80s, and my first year of college to gun violence that was just random. And at that time, it was a whole problem all over the country. And it feels like we're back at that place again for some reason. I want to say something spiritual, but what comes to me is how this unfolded, the background of it unfolded when I saw a movie, and the movie talked about this journalist that ended up getting killed because he was covering a war where the CIA was involved with getting drugs and drug money into the United States. And it ended up where there was all of this whole problem was about this funding of this war. This was I forget the guy's name, but we're talking about the late 80s, 90s. There were a lot of murders during that time. So what I know is that this is not just I don't believe in conspiracy, but I don't think it's just happening by chance. And it still can be prayed up that we can do something about it by our diligence and praying.
Better go to bed.
I'm sorry. I know people that have lost all of their sons. On one of the block where my grandmother lived in East Oakland, all of the young men on that block, well, one had a heart attack, but all of the young men had been shot, even the guys around the corner the boys shot each other. There's something just very broken that I know that it's not like you can apply a Band-Aid and fix it, but there's a place where we can pray it up, and we can just know that it's not just people being violent and crazy for no reason, and they're finding these reasons, but there's something about this whole piece of guns being so available. Mm-hmm. There's something about our country where we have to be producing and weapons of mass destruction. Right. So it's like if we push back and say we don't want any more guns and bombs and nuclear weapons produced, that affects somebody's bottom line. There's a corporation that affects. And so this whole thing it's a whole system that we have to pray up. And I think we have to really rethink what we're okay with. I'm not okay with these boys shooting each other. I had a cousin
think 2 cousins shot in East Oakland. They're distant. They're not, my first cousins, but my second cousin's son.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew him. He's only 33. And her heart is broken. And all the kids that he left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to put together like how many people just at East Bay that have been touched by knowing somebody who has died, there's like probably thousands of young men that have been killed. This is at war level, like Lafayette, where all the crosses are. It's massive, and because it's not touching the politicians, we just we grieve and then we go on and then we just do the same thing all over again, and we say, I'm sorry for this happening, and then nothing changes. And it's unbelievable to me to have had so many young men have had that whole problem happen in the 90s and for us to be here again. For some reason, I thought that that would never happen, kind of like the Holocaust. We'll never let the Holocaust happen again. We'll never let this genocide happen again. Just as people of this country, as Americans, we won't let this happen again. That's where my mindset is at. So I know it's a rant, but it's also my prayer. It's also my prayer. And my prayer is that we pray it up in multitudes of ways. We get creative and pray up, what is the solution about this? How do I reach out? Where do I put money on it? Where do I put love on it? That we all continue to pray this up until we stop hearing about this violence happening. And we not let it go, that it be a part of our daily practice. So I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody, Judith.
Oh, I think new people are coming out in the meeting.
Thank you, Stacy, very much for your share. I think tonight we're in a state where we are seeking solutions to some problems. And I just remember very clearly what you've said over and over and over and over again, Reverend E, is that sticks with me and that I share with everybody that I get the great fortune to be involved with in this type of forum. And it's my trigger line for me to get in touch with that power that we have. And you've always said it's easy, Paul. God is, I am.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can get to that space of knowing that connection, then I know I have the power to pray up those situations that Stacy is bringing up, and praying for systemic changes that supports human life, and praying and knowing that's the essence of our being, because God is, I am.
Yeah.
That's something I've learned from you, and Reverend Sally also teaches that from you. So I cascade it to my family that's here tonight. I think we have the power to make this shift, Reverend E. Do you believe that? Do you feel that? You've had your own shift tonight, so.
Well, I have to live up to what I teach, and I teach it God is, and so there's not Obaye and the boy who shot him. There's only God. And so the same prayer I have for the boy who was shot, I have to pray the same prayer for the boy who shot him. Because all of these are God's children. I believe that. And sometimes my family thinks I'm kind of crazy, but that's what I believe. I believe that we're all God's people. And anybody that comes across my path in any kind of way came for me to pray. no matter if you shot my grandson, the reason you came in my life was so I could pray. And I can pray for you. Because I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to judge. I know that somebody wrote a poem that said there's so much bad in the best of us and so much good in the rest of us that it don't behoove any of us to talk about any of us or something like that. But I know that there's energy and everything is energy. And I feel that we have a place called Oakland Center where the energy is perfect love. That's what I found when I got there. And that's what I always know, that no matter what, God is, and we are. I refer to the song Amazing Grace. And black people used to sing that song every Sunday in church. They sang Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. We sang it so much I thought the song was written by a black man. And then Bill Moyers did a documentary and said the man that wrote that song was a slave trader. And he was about to lose his cargo of slaves and his own life. And he wrote that song. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. This is and he got back to England. He became an abolitionist and he helped to abolish the slave trade because he came from it and he knows how it works. And so that's what I believe about life. If you came in my life, whether you're a slave trader or not, you came for me to pray.
Thank you, Reverend E. We're going to shift the schedule a little bit tonight in focusing on supporting spiritually and physically those in need by praying for those on both sides of the situation, Reverend E, and just as you described. So I'm going to toss out a couple of things that we normally do on Wednesday nights. I'm just going to do, and Peter, we're not going to show the PowerPoint. I'm just going to ask you all to know that there's some information I need to share very quickly about what's coming up. And then we're going to go into a moment with a song that Constance has prepared, Reverend E, that I think will bless us and give us a moment to pray for all involved and remember that we're all God's children. So I just want you all to know that on Sunday, Reverend Jerry is going to be speaking, and prophetically, she'll be speaking on the subject of looking anger in the eye. So we will definitely have an extension of what happened here tonight happen on Sunday. So please join us. A meditation at 10, service at 10:30. And then next Wednesday, practitioner Judith Roberts will also be speaking and elaborating on what happened on Sunday. We have a lot of Reverend E in our future. A lot. She's speaking in June. I know that already. I will be announcing that later. Reverend Jerry has shared with me. But Reverend E's book is available at the bookstore now. So come and see that on Sunday. And this Sunday after service, we have two wonderful, wonderful artists, local artists will be featuring, which is Letitia Baker and Afaya Asabi. And they're invited guests of our bookstore and Linda Wyman. So please come check them out in the courtyard. I have a lot more other announcements, other things that we do tonight that I'm just going to skip through because I'm having this calling, Reverend E, as your host to answer your call for prayer and thought, where our meditation was based on Dr. Dan tonight. I borrowed. I will not gladly return it though. From a couple of days ago, talking about That thought is the connection link between the infinite and the finite, between the universal and the individual. If our thought is in harmony with the creative principle of nature, it is in tune with the infinite mind, and it will form the circuit. It will not return void. So that's the space I want to kind of create that brought us into our service tonight through the meditation, and as we kind of go out and a little bit earlier than normal. And if we could just focus our minds on what Reverend E has asked of us, to, and Stacy so eloquently put, pray up those involved in these situations. Reverend E, you've done a miraculous job of us looking at our emotion tonight. And that's exactly what the theme was.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, because as you said, when we look at clearly what our emotion is, then an answer is revealed.
Yeah.
And we're not avoiding it. It's coming in. Instead of dodging it, we're facing it and releasing it. And then we can return to our state of grace. And so, Constance, if you're ready, can you play? And Reverend E, you're going to find this amazing that she has this song to play. And I think this will set the tone.
I once was amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saves and sets me free. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saves and sets me free. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come was blind, but now I see.
So as we breathe this in, Reverend E and Stacy, thank you so much for your service tonight. I am changing the lineup tonight, and I'm going to ask one of our ministerial students and practitioner and someone near and dear to your heart, Reverend E, to encompass the feeling tone of this evening and bring us all home to close out our service tonight. And that's your grandson, Lucian Baker. Lucian.
Yay.
Continuing in the consciousness of perfection, we know that God is the only power in existence. One breath, one mind, one heartbeat. I, Lucian Baker, speak my word in this perfect life of God, knowing that all is well, and that divine right order is always going on. Regardless of appearance, regardless of human understanding, all is happening exactly as it should. And so I'm speaking my word for all of us, knowing that we see the divine plan. We trust in it. We allow it to be. We know that God knows exactly what God is doing. So we welcome the lesson. We welcome the growth. We welcome the experience. And I'm just simply giving thanks right now. Thanks for this opportunity to fix our eyes on the God of the situation at all times. Giving thanks for another opportunity to see just how abundant God is. I speak for perfect health, for healing, for happiness, for understanding. I'm speaking for all these things and just that more, for God is just that abundance. And so with great gratitude, I allow it to be, knowing that the answer is always yes, knowing that God is undefeated and is simply the only power in existence. So I place it in God's hands, knowing that it is done, knowing that it is sealed. And so it is. Ashe.
It is. Ashe.
So it is. Thank you so much, Lucian.